A welcome to Snake Beats and Jeremy Richardson, some of our new followers on our Locked On Blue Jays YouTube page. Thanks for hitting that subscribe and following along for the 2023 Toronto Blue Jays season. I know we all had higher hopes and expectations, as currently this is the last place Toronto Blue Jays. My goodness, over their last 11 games versus AL East foes, Blue Jays have but one win in there, and we just saw, remember how happy we were last Monday? That was a 3-0 start to the homestand a week ago today. Well, it limped to the finish line of that homestand at 4-6. In today's episode, we'll deep dive what we saw from the Blue Jays in that homestand, and schedule-wise, things do not get easier. We're going to have to deep dive. We're going to have to buckle in. We're going to have to get ready for this 4-game series at the Toronto Blue Jay House of Horrors, Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. Yes, indeed. I am Locked On Blue Jays, which means I did not have a very good weekend. I think you're pretty knee-deep in Toronto Blue Jay baseball as well. I don't think you had a very good weekend. Remember, this was a couple weekends in a row where the Blue Jays swept through the weekend, including opening this now concluded 10-game homestand with the sweep last weekend of the hot Atlanta Braves at that time. Man, we were feeling good. Oh, boy. Things took a definite turn as the New York Yankees came to town and dealt with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Baltimore Orioles came to town and swept away the Toronto Blue Jays. My goodness. Going to be joined throughout this week by Locked On Rays as we deep dive and get you set for this. Boy, oh boy, very scary. I was going to say, is it an important series? At the very least, it's a scary series. I'm always petrified. I'll tell you that right now. The Tampa Bay Rays scared the absolute heck out of me. It's never mattered what roster does Tampa have, what roster does Toronto have, what place are the two teams in, who's playing well at the time when they meet, and who. Nothing has mattered when it comes to Toronto Blue Jays versus the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays always beat the Toronto Blue Jays. If you're old enough to remember back in the days where there was just two divisions, an American League East and American League West, National League East and National League West, and in those days, you won your division or you went home. Well, the Milwaukee Brewers were in the American League East with the Toronto Blue Jays, and same scenario. In those 80s and 90s, same scenario. Did not matter who had the better roster, who had the hotter team at the time, who had injuries to deal with. Nothing mattered. Where did they line up in their pitching rotation? Nothing mattered. Milwaukee Brewers always beat the Toronto Blue Jays. That's how it is with the Tampa Bay Rays these last, decades now. It's been decades-long domination. My goodness. So we'll get set for that series. Very, very trepidatious for any time the Toronto Blue Jays are at the Trop. But let's get started here by looking at, let's deep dive. Let's look back at that 4-6 homestand. Oh, boy, my goodness. Whew, oh, boy. What did we see in that homestand? Couldn't have liked it. Well, let's start with the leadoff man, George Springer. Now, there's something, because there is some glass half full things. There are some glass half full things that took place in this homestand. George Springer is one of them. He hit safely in 8 of the 10 games, 13 for 41. There was two home runs in there, 6 RBIs, 6 RBIs and 7 runs scored for George Springer in this homestand. I mean, a 10-game homestand, that's a lot of big numbers right there. Bo, the number 2 hitter in the lineup. Oh, boy. Bo, not a great homestand. 12 for 42. That's a 286 batting average. Now, that doesn't stink by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly, below 300, right? That's below Bo's flow, right? Just 2 runs scored. So indicative. Hitting in the 2 spot, right? Just 2 runs scored. So indicative of how anemic the Blue Jays offense was during this homestand. 10 singles, a double, a home run, 6 RBIs. I mean, 6 RBIs in the homestand, that's pretty good for Bo, but that really tells the story of how Springer did well, and Kiermaier, we'll get to that right at the bottom of the lineup, turning back over for Bo for those RBI opportunities. We'll look at that in a moment. How about the number 3 hitter, Slim Daddy Vladdy? Ooh, 7 for 32. That's a 219 batting average over the course of this homestand. Still has as many 2023 home runs at the Rogers Center as you or I have, which, of course, is to say 0. I talked about how indicative it was of how anemic the Blue Jays offense was, with Bo only having 2 runs scored in this 10-game homestand. Vlad, only 2 runs scored in this 10-game homestand. He did have 6 RBIs, 11 strikeouts, though, including 3 yesterday on that Sunday game, right? Striking out is not something Vlad was doing early on in the season. Hitting home runs is something he was doing early on in the season. Not striking out is some. So it's turned. The month of May has really seen struggles for a lot of Toronto Blue Jay hitters. Vlad, one of them. Speaking of the month of May struggles for Blue Jay hitters, oh boy, how about Matt Chapman? 7 for 40 in the homestand. Now, finally got his first home run in May yesterday. Oh, my God. On May 21st, the April player of the month got his first home run of the month. I mean, oh, my goodness. 2 RBIs in the entire 10-game homestand. Again, both were yesterday. 15 strikeouts for Matt Chapman in the homestand. Holy moly. And what was so problematic and scary is pitchers were reverting to what got him out in the past, that fastball at the top of the strike zone that looks so good to him that he tries to swing and connect and he just misses. Now that's the home run he hit. They tried to get him at the top of the zone and it missed and gravitated more towards the middle of the plate, and he dealt with it. To his credit, he dealt with that pitch. If you saw that at bat, he missed that was the third pitch of the at bat. He missed the second pitch of the at bat. Similar thing. So that was against Dean Kramer. He was missing his spots against Chapman. So my goodness, is that what it's going to take to get Chapman out of this May slump for pitchers making mistakes? Because if that's the case, then this 4-gamer at Tampa Bay probably doesn't have a lot of that. And then they go to Minnesota next weekend, by the way, and Minnesota's pitching really well as well. Oh my goodness. How about Dalton Varsho? Whoa. Oof. 4 for 37 for Dalton Varsho on this homestand. 1 RBI. Dalton Varsho hits either 4th or 5th, and he had 1 RBI. Chapman as well, by the way, hitting 4th or 5th at 2 RBIs. So the 4 and 5 hitters for the Toronto Blue Jays in this 10-game homestand, 3 RBIs. I mean, completely unacceptable. For the season, in fact, I know we're looking at just at this homestand, but worth noting that for the entire season, Dalton Varsho, 9 for 76. That's a 118 batting average and just 2 RBIs at home all season. Wow, Dalton Varsho not doing a lot to appease the new home crowd, right? Holy moly. Alejandro Kirk. Now, Kirky had 2 hits on Sunday. Hopefully that's going to get him going, but on the homestand as a whole, wow, 5 for 24, no home runs, no runs scored, 1 measly RBI. I mean, Alejandro Kirk does not have the bat going yet in 2023. How about the Blue Jays' other catcher, Danny Jansen? Now, here's one of the rare bright spots. Springer was a bright spot on this homestand. Here was another bright spot, and one of the, probably the brightest spot. Danny Jansen got his bat going in this homestand. 9 for 30, a pair of doubles, a pair of home runs, 8 RBIs. 10-game homestand, 8 RBIs from your catcher who's hitting near the bottom of the lineup. I mean, that's going to work, right? That's going to work. Just great to see. Also, you know what? Great to see Brandon Belt get the bat going. Now, he had a few at-bats where, I mean, he was like all the Blue Jays, right? Where he really struggled with minute scoring position during this homestand, had several key at-bats in key spots with men on, couldn't get it done. I know who could on this Blue Jay team in this homestand, I know. But overall, Belt 9 for 27. That's a 333 batting average. Add on 6 walks and a hit batsman. His homestand on base percentage, 471. Excellent. Whit Merrifield, boy, excellent is the word we would have used to describe Whit Merrifield coming into this homestand, but he really struggled. Whit Merrifield was downright bad in this 10-game homestand. He was downright bad, offensively and defensively. 7 for 35. My goodness. 7 runs scored. Okay, you know what? There actually are some glass half full things with Whit Merrifield, because 7 runs scored, that is legit, and 6 for 6 on stolen bases. Okay, that's legit as well, right? But he lost 21 points on his batting average during this homestand. And again, just at the plate, did he look like the Whit Merrifield we've seen so far this season? I don't think he did. Even in the field, did he look like the Whit Merrifield we've seen so far this season? I don't think he did. Coming up on the Locked On Blue Jay podcast, we're joined in a crossover conversation with Locked On Rays as we deep dive the woes the Blue Jays have had at the Trop and deep dive tonight's pitching matchup. First, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. Well, it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices, all on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Craig Ballard here with Kevin Weiss. Crossover conversation. You know, I always love these. Locked On Blue Jays with Locked On Tampa Bay Rays with Locked On Rays. And oh boy, if I seem nervous throughout this entire conversation and this entire week, it's because I am. I think I'm massively on record as absolutely fearing the Tampa Bay Rays. They always beat the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Jays playing horrible baseball right now, heading into the Trop, the house of horrors for the Blue Jays. Kevin, I think it's one series win. I think it was 2014. The Jays took 6 out of the 10 games at the Trop. In the last 16 seasons, Kevin Weiss from Locked On Rays, it's the only time that the Toronto Blue Jays have won a series at Tampa Bay. So, Kevin, I know you're a good person. I know Locked On Rays is a great follow, but Kevin, you guys have been downright unhospitable to the Toronto Blue Jays when we've come to town the last many years.
Wow, that's amazing. I did not realize or reference that stat beforehand. So maybe that means good things for the Rays this upcoming week.
Uh-oh.
It's surprising because I would think that the Blue Jays playing in a dome, just like the Rays, they would have some familiarity and some comfortableness with that, but I guess not. And this might not be a good week for the Jays to visit the Rays, considering the Rays have been very, very, very good at home so far this season. And like you mentioned, it doesn't seem like the fan base is too ecstatic about what the Blue Jays have going on right now. Last I checked, last in the division right now.
A 10-game homestand the Blue Jays just completed. It started out at 3-0, Kevin, as the Blue Jays swept the hot Atlanta Braves last weekend. But then the Yankees and the Orioles came to town for the last 7 of this homestand. Blue Jays won just 1 game. In fact, Kevin, in the last 11 versus the AL East foes, Blue Jays have but 1 win. It's a real scuffle going on right now. I know it's a winning record, but still, I mean, last place is last place. And the rest of this division is not just going to sit around and wait for the Blue Jays to get their act together.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into these pitching matchups, because I definitely want to pick your brain, because we're talking about the Blue Jays at the Trop. What a nightmare it's been for the Toronto Blue Jays. Literally, Kevin, it's the reason for this. I'll tell you that right now. But I want to go through some numbers here, and these are not for the faint of heart, but just an example of the sort of struggles the Toronto Blue Jays have had at Tropicana Field. So George Springer, in his career at the Trop, 173 hitter. Then come the number 2 hitters, Bo Bichette, 202 hitter with a 571 OPS. Remember now, Kevin, Bo has led the league in hits 2 years in a row and is going to do it again this year. Bo Bichette is a hitting machine.
And he's from St. Petersburg originally. I mean, he's got some familiarity with the area. You would think sleeping in his own bed, he would be okay.
Yes, it has not been the case. Slim Daddy Vladdy hitting just 215 at the Trop. He has just 1 home run career, Kevin, at the Trop. Matt Chapman, the player of the month in April, has been abysmal in May. Well, I don't see this series as the cure for what ails him. He's hitting 159 all time at the Trop. For Varsho, this will be his first time heading to Tampa Bay. Hopefully he can do something for the Blue Jays. Now, some good news. Brandon Belt, 7 for 17 with a double, a triple, and 3 home runs, and an OPS at the Trop of 1.663. So finally, Blue Jay fans, some glass half full. We'll see what what Brandon Belt can do this weekend. Blue Jays catchers, so Kirk and Jansen, Kevin, combined at Tropicana, 13 for 116. That's a 112 average, Kevin Weiss. To state the obvious, going to need to be better. Now, one thing I am excited about in this series is Whit Merrifield. Now, Whit, in this last, we just talking about the 10-game homestand the Jays just had. Whit Merrifield lost 21 points off his batting average in this homestand. He was terrible. 6 for 6 on stolen bases. I will shout that out. But at the plate, he is just looking unrecognizable lately. But 20 for 61, that's a 328 career average at the Trop. OPS over 1,000 at the Trop. And how about this, Kevin? 6 home runs for Whit Merrifield at the Trop. That's by far the most home runs for well, I shouldn't say that. He has 9 at Detroit, but he spent all those years in Kansas City, right, with the unbalanced schedule with Detroit. So of non-AL Central teams, let's put it that way, by far the ballpark that he's hit the most home runs at. Now, glass half full for Blue Jay fans is, yes, the Tampa Bay Rays did lose at home yesterday, but Kevin, glass half empty. My God, that put your record at home at 21-4. Holy moly. What sort of things in particular are going right for you guys at the Trop? All of it, right?
Well, a lot of things are going right, I would say. One thing that I don't think can be ignored is the fact that the Trop was the Rays spring training site. So I think that helped a lot of the younger players and veterans get into a rhythm early on, because the original spring training site in Port Charlotte, it was damaged due to Hurricane Ian. So the Rays had really not many or no other choice but to play their spring training home games at Tropicana Field. So I think that got them into a little bit of a groove there. And then offensively, I mean, it is amazing things are being done. We know about what Yandy can do and Randy Arozarena can do and Wander Franco can do, but it's been some of the unheralded, unlikely characters like Taylor Walls going off and Josh Lowe going off and Luke Raley going off. So I'm sure there's a point where the offense is going to come back to earth a little bit, but what helps is basically having everybody healthy and these young players really molding themselves and becoming veterans and just really getting the hang of this Major League Baseball thing very, very quickly. It's funny, you brought up some of the negatives with the Blue Jays hitting. I'm surprised you didn't want to mention Kevin Kiermaier. You didn't want to mention the former Ray doing so well, at least on paper. Everything I've seen and heard is that he's going like gangbusters with the Blue Jays. So maybe that's your ace in the hole there for this series. He can provide some expertise and some guidance to the rest of the roster for this 4-game series.
I sincerely hope so. Yeah, Kevin Kiermaier has been outstanding. And we talked about the road trip, the homestand that just finished where the Blue Jays were brutal. Kevin Kiermaier was not brutal. He has been outstanding, Kevin, and really doing damage to the fastball. It's been an extremely pleasant surprise. It is stunning for Kevin Kiermaier to already be such a fan favorite with the Toronto Blue Jays. This guy was a 4-letter word, Kevin, and any Ray was a 4-letter word, but especially Kevin Kiermaier, right? He was there terrorizing us for a decade in center field, in particular Tropicana Field as well. But you touched on the offense. I do want to stay there for a second here because this is a Rays team. I mean, this is what's not typical at all about this Rays team. As we get into these pitching matchups, surprise, surprise, there's studs that the Rays have developed, and there's other pitchers that haven't done well with other teams that the Rays have brought in that are killing it. Typical Rays pitching stuff going on in 2023. But this offense, 17th in average last season, 21st in runs last season, 25th in home runs last season. Number one in all these categories, number one in all these offensive categories. And you mentioned some of the guys they've got going. I have to hear, Kevin, how on earth, because this guy was available for a lot of different teams, but you mentioned Raley. I would throw Betancourt in there. The guys that you've developed, like Franco, you mentioned Lowe and Walls. Kevin, Harold Ramirez. I mean, this guy, for me, has come out of nowhere. He was good last year as well, but Harold Ramirez, all kinds of teams. It's similar to like an Encarnacion, Jose Bautista in Toronto Blue Jay lore, where they came to the Jays on their like 5th or 6th. So many teams had chances at these guys, and for whatever reason, things clicked when they got to Toronto. What in particular is going on with Harold Ramirez for you guys this season, Kevin?
Well, what's really interesting about Harold Ramirez, I mean, he was really, really good last year. If you look at his numbers in 2022, he was a 300 hitter. It was just that he got hurt and he missed, a good portion of the season, 40 plus games. So he's really just building off what he did all of last year. I think showcasing a little bit more power than previously, but I just don't know if he really ever got a true opportunity or a true shot in the other places that he played at, because the hit tool has seemingly always been there. It's just he needed a true shot and an opportunity and a team to really believe in him. And I think that the Rays have done that. And the organization is very welcoming to players of different cultures and different backgrounds and whatever, idiosyncrasies they may have. So maybe it was just a case of him settling into the right environment. Maybe he's just more comfortable in Cleveland and Miami compared to more comfortable in Tampa Bay compared to Cleveland and Miami. So, really, it's continuing with what he did last year, I would say.
Yeah. Coming up on Locked On Blue Jays, we'll continue our crossover conversation with Locked On Rays. And reminder that Locked On Blue Jays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And don't forget, you can catch tonight's Jays-Rays tilt on SiriusXM. One of our new sponsors, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, SoRare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. So where MLB game weeks happen twice weekly and span a 3 or 4 day cycle. At the end of the game week, SoRare MLB managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which can include SoRare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start playing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. Together, Chris Bassitt for the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's on the mound for the Blue Jays tonight is Bassitt going up against Trevor Kelly, an opener for Tampa. We'll get to Kelly in a moment here. Let's start with Chris Bassitt. Chris Bassitt, 5-2, ERA just over 3 on the season. He comes into this game, Kevin, on a scoreless streak of 27 1/3 innings pitched. He has been spectacular. Blue Jays, his first start of the season was that start, I believe, a Sunday at St. Louis, the first Sunday game, like third game of the season. He's never been rocked like that in his entire life. Everything he threw up there was absolutely dealt with by that St. Louis team that season. It was incredible, or that game. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. Blue Jays are 6-2 in his 8 starts since. The only 2 losses, they lost 3-1, so scored 1 run. And the other game, they lost 10-8 to the Mariners. But when Bassitt left that game, the Blue Jays were up 8-4. So since that first game at St. Louis, everything Bassitt has done has been excellent. He's only faced 4 Rays in his career. Brandon Lowe has homered off him. Mejia's done well against him as well. Hard to say, Kevin. You'll have to predict for us if either one of those guys will even play tonight. But what I want to really highlight here for Chris Bassitt, this is a night game, of course, 6:40 p.m. first pitch. You can catch all the Rays and all the Jays games, of course, on Sirius XM. Chris Bassitt, whatever this guy's routine is, Kevin, for night games, it's on point. 1.13 ERA in his night games so far this season in his 6 night games. Opponents hitting just 138 versus Bassitt in these night games. Now, what Ray or Rays, plural, do you feel like need to step up tonight against a veteran as locked in as Chris Bassitt?
Well, generally, I would just say the veterans. It's the guys like Wander Franco and Randy Arozarena and Yandy Diaz to kind of lead the charge there. But if we've learned anything about this Rays team, it's those guys can go cold or have an off night, and somebody else like a Harold Ramirez or a Taylor Walls or a Christian Bethancourt can kind of pick up the load. But I think it all starts with the top of the order, and those 3 are typically cemented up there.
And then how about for Trevor Kelly? Now, I assume he's going to be an opener, right? He's only been going a couple innings.
I mean, look, I'm just going to be honest here, Craig. If the Blue Jays don't win this game or at least outpitch the opposition with the Rays, it could be a rough series because I would look on paper and say this is the best matchup for the Blue Jays to take advantage. Trevor Kelly has struggled this season. He struggled basically his entire career. Yes, he'll just be an opener, not very experienced. And if we've learned anything about the Rays bullpen this year, it's very up and down, a lot more downs of late. So, I would think that, maybe the Blue Jays try to get an early lead and get Chris Bassitt into a comfortable spot and roll and go from there. But, Trevor Kelly, outside of being a side armor, I don't know if there's anything that really stands out or super incredibly impressive about him. I think it's just one of those cases like Kevin Kelly, kind of an inexperienced guy that's still trying to find his footing in the big leagues and trying to find the role that best suits him.
And Trevor Kelly, he pitched in that. Remember, the Jays and Rays were together in Toronto for a series in mid-April. Jays taking 2 of those 3 games, and Kelly pitched in one of those games. He was cruising, but he had 2 out, nobody on, then hit Kirk, and that would lead to a 2-out rally against him. So, as you said, Kevin, can't imagine we see a ton of him. What do you think Kevin Cash, or how do you think Kevin Cash and the Rays maneuver tonight? So, who else do you think we'll see pitch tonight?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, I guess it depends on the matchups and who's doing hot and so forth. I mean, typically I would think that they'd want to mix lefty, righty, and go from there. I don't really have their list in front of me, but a lot of mixing and matching, I would say.
That's a wrap for Monday's Locked On Blue Jays. Tune in tomorrow as we'll again be joined by the Locked On Rays as we deep dive Jose Barrios versus Taj Bradley. That's Tuesday's Jays-Rays matchup. And later this week, Cespedes Family Barbecue joins us. I mean, I'm very excited about that. How awesome are they? Now, for now, keep it locked on the Locked On Podcast Network and check out Sully on Locked On MLB. Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. Boy, ugly end to what ended up being an ugly homestand for the Toronto Blue Jays. This 10-game homestand opened up at 3-0. Remember last weekend? We were loving life. Well, only 1 win this past week at home, falling flat on their face against All-American League East foes. Like, holy moly. Don't look now. Well, okay, go ahead and look now. Look at this upcoming schedule for the Toronto Blue Jays. 17 of their next 20 games are against first-place teams, and the only 3 that aren't against the first-place team are against the New York Mets, and they've suddenly caught fire. Great. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week, the Toronto Blue Jays at the Trop, at Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay, their house of horrors. Then on the weekend at Minnesota, who's pitching very well. So at least on paper, this 7-game road trip coming up this week does not at all look like it's going to have the cure for what's been ailing this Toronto Blue Jay offense.